know first and foremost that the human beings were hunters and gatherers. They will go out into the extreme climate to go out and make a living for themselves, to go out, acquire food. And sometimes the conditions can be very challenging. So first and foremost, again, Allah says, do not be excessive. So there are times when the climate is very warm. And there are times when the climate is excessively cold. So Allah has given us both of the extremes. Now, when we look in society today and we think about the clothing, as soon as it gets hot, people want to take off their clothes. That's the first thing that they want to do. They want to take off their clothes. It was too hot. Let me come out of this. But Allah has given us the ultimate wisdom and direction, first and foremost, that your clothing is a protection for you. So when you go to a place that has extreme heat, I don't know how many of you have been to the Middle East or have been to Hajj or been to these extreme heat. And I don't want to point the brother out, but there's a brother in here that's dressed like the way that they would dress over there. They don't wear shorts and t-shirts and tank tops in the desert. They're wearing clothing to protect themselves from the heat. So protecting themselves from the extreme. And vice versa. When it's extremely cold, you understand naturally. This is human, basic common sense that when it's cold outside, put your coat on. Just like grandma used to tell you before you go outside, boy, put that coat on before you go outside. You're going to catch cold around here. So this is just basic, fundamental foundation intelligence that Allah has given us. The first and foremost, the purpose of clothes is to be a protection. And then Allah comes with His mercy and He says that it also is an adornment for you to show your cultural expression, to show your beauty, to show off your spirit. But don't be excessive. Don't be excessive in what you're doing. Then Allah goes on to tell us in the next ayah, He says, O ye children of Adam, let not the shaitan seduce you in the manner as he got your parents out of the garden. Out of this original nature, out of this original obedience, stripping them of their raiment, exposing their shame. For he and his tribe watch you from a position where you cannot see. And he says, Allah says, we have made the evil ones friends only to those without faith. Only to those without faith. So this word that Allah uses for raiment or clothing is libasa or labasa. It means to cover, to cloak, to obscure, to mystify, to render a thing obscure and confused to another. It also means to wear, to put on, to be clothed in, etc., etc. But then he says the best dress is taqwa. The best dress is taqwa. And the word taqwa, we understand, this word taqwa comes from the word waqiyah, which means to protect, to save, to preserve, to ward off evil and calamity. And it also is a shield or protection. And it reminds a person how they should be regardful of their duty to Allah, the creator of all things, and their regard for their fellow human being. So, Allah given us instruction to not let the Satan take you out of this original dress. So the original dress, the best dress is taqwa. So no matter what type of clothes you put on, you can have on the finest suit. You can have on the best dress. But if your spirit is not right, then it doesn't matter what you put on. See, Allah is always giving us direction that everything builds from the inside out, not from the outside in. And this world, they want you to focus on the material, the outside. The influence of the shaitan is more on the outside. Because this is the weakness of the human being. This is the weakness. He can fall victim to these influences like he seduced our parents, Adam, and his mate, Hawa, out of their original dress. So the shaitan wants to take us out of our original dress. And it has been our focus ever since then. Since we were put on the earth, is to get back to that original dress. Get back to that original obedience. So Allah is telling us that it is not your clothes. It is not your outwardly expression that He wants. But He's looking at did he put more emphasis on, that he values the most? What he values the most is your taqwa, how you regard yourself, how you protect yourself from evil, from shameful deeds. So this is what Allah wants us to understand. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسْنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسْنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We are in, as we mentioned at the beginning, the last few days of the month of Ramadan. And we know that Allah has given us guidance on what the purpose of the Ramadan is. He says of it that He has prescribed the month of Ramadan for us so that we may learn taqwa, that we may learn taqwa. So this month of Ramadan is all about building that inner dress. This month of Ramadan is all about building that inner dress. Allah takes us off the focus of the physical things, the material things. And it is just as if you have 5 senses. All of us have 5 senses. And we know that if you take one of the senses away, then the other senses become heightened. If a person is blind, then perhaps their hearing will increase. And Allah has created us on 3 different levels. He has created us on a physical level, on an intellectual level, and He has created us on a spiritual level. So if Allah is taking us away from the material focus and the physical focus by having us abstain from the physical things, then it gives us understanding that our spiritual life and our mental life should be increasing during this month of Ramadan. So this is what Allah has prescribed. Allah being the ultimate doctor, He has prescribed for us that this month is a month about increasing our spiritual life, increasing our taqwa, learning more about taqwa, and also building our intellectual involvement as well. So Allah telling us during this month of Ramadan that we take off the dress. We take off the dress. We take off the mindset of the world. And we put on a new dress. And we build this inner dress. The month of Ramadan is also a month of reform. And the best reform is when you go back to those original sources. Those original sources. So Allah is pointing us back to where we were before. When we were a baby. When we didn't know sin. When we didn't know how to treat each other wrong. When we were totally dependent first upon mother and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah is showing us that we are going back to that original dress. We're going back to that original adornment. We're going back to that original place where we were before. Pointing back to when we didn't know, we didn't even want to commit sin. And if we did commit sin, we would run in the corner like a baby because we were shameful of it. So Allah's getting us back to this where we feel shame when we get out of order. Some of us have no shame when we do something bad. Some of us have no shame when we treat each other bad. Some of us have no shame in the way of our appearance and the way we communicate. See, the dress is also a communication to the rest of the people. It's a communication of how you feel inside. It's a communication of how you are expressing your regardfulness. I respect you. If I go to your house and I come in my filthy clothes, am I showing you respect? What am I communicating to you? When I go to a job interview, what am I communicating to the employer? So our dress also is a communication of how we are, where our mind is, where our spirit is. And this is what Allah wants us to have reverence of. Allah wants us to protect that essence. In the conclusion, we want to focus on how all of this is relevant. How is this all relevant to today in society? First and foremost, when we think about dress, dress is also a cultural expression. The dress also shapes the culture. And the culture is all encompassing. It's not just the clothing, but it's how we communicate. It's how we educate ourselves. It encompasses all the five senses. So it's a cultural expression, and it's a culture communication. So the question is, who is designing the clothes in which we wear? Who is designing those? Is it the influence of the shaitan? Is it the influence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's just look at popular culture. In popular culture, we know that we don't control the clothing industry. But that's an opportunity for us. That's an opportunity for us. And our young people are being influenced. The culture is being dominated by the influence of those who drive the industry of the clothing. What are the trends? What is the trend for fashion today in summer of 2017? And they've planned this a long time ago. They first start with the language. It first starts in the language. Now, the language nowadays is, if something is nice, it's lit, man. That's lit. So what are they saying to you? They're lighting a fire up under you. And your clothes are burning. It's showing all your passion, all in your clothes. There was a time where a man was comfortable in loose clothing. But those who are shaping fashion now is making everything to be hugged and fitted to where you can see the body, the shape of the body of a male. And we know that these leggings, these yoga pants that these sisters are wearing, they wear them everywhere. It's the most fashionable thing that there is. You can be comfortable with tight-fitting pants. Everything is tight now. So they're communicating to you. They're setting the temperature. They're setting the climate. So they understand what Allah was intending for you a long time ago. They know that the clothes were representative of the temperature. But if you're not setting the temperature, how are you justifying what you're wearing? How are you controlling what you're wearing if you're not the one that is setting the temperature of the environment? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. So we have to look at the ones who are the trendsetters. And the focus is always on the women. The focus is always on the women. How the women set the tone. If our sisters were in here wearing scantily clad clothes, it would set the tone for the men. Because sisters, you're showing how you're communicating. The way you dress is communicating to the man what your mentality is, what your spirit is like. So they go to the happy hour, and what is the attire for a happy hour? Cocktail dress. The dress above your thigh. So automatically, ain't no business going on in there first. It's not business. Now they tell you the short skirts is business attire now. So you can wear yoga pants and then put on a nice shirt, and now that's business attire. But we know we have a history in shaping how we dress. Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he set the tone for us in our history as far as African Americans are concerned, in our spirituality and how we are dignified and how we're in this honorable place. The women were covered from head to toe, and the men were in pressed suits, nice ties, and they were dignified. And this put a certain aura, a certain personality. You had a certain mindset when you had this uniform on. So, what has happened since then? When we look at the culture, that dominated the culture. When you went to the streets, you saw men doing something productive. They had on nice suits. Now when you go to the street, you can't tell if a person is in business. They just came from the basketball court. You don't know what they're doing. So, in order for us to control our environment, to control our cultural expression, we have to get back to the original dress. We have to reshape the mindset. We have to reshape the culture. And this is an excellent opportunity. And we know we have some sisters in here that can make some beautiful clothing. We know that. And we have some brothers that can wear some nice suits. We know that. But it does nothing if we're just wearing that in the masjid. So you wear your beautiful, nice hijab and scarf and all of these things in the masjid. But if I catch you in the workplace You look just like the rest of them.